Hi, I'm Kylie, and white conservatives are terrified of POC outnumbering us. And I truly believe this is the motivation behind a lot of hateful policies in the US. If you haven't heard of the Great Replacement Theory, it is that over time, if enough Black and brown immigrants come to the US, as well as white people having children with POC, then over time, POC will outnumber white people. And the reason that this is so unsettling to a lot of white people, especially conservative white people, is that they are terrified that if POC become in power, then they will treat us like we've treated them in the past, which is obviously not great. It involves subjugation of people, enslavement, assault, violence of basically every kind. And I think that white people can feel the shift happening as they are becoming more and more outnumbered. And that is why they are clinging so tightly to power in Congress and with the president right now. And that's why it's so funny when white people deny that racism exists, because if they didn't think racism did exist, they wouldn't be scared of being outnumbered. But they understand the ways that we have treated people of color has been atrocious, and thus they are scared of the tables turning and of being in that position of subjugation.
Hey, white people, why does having a white majority in this country matter so much to you? We've definitely been able to determine that the reason why, I'm going to say all the policies, but all these executive orders, all of these ideas that are being put out by this administration, all are traced back to how can we keep a white majority in this country? If things stay the way that they are, if demographics continue to move in the direction that they are right now, by 2045, white people will no longer be the majority of this country. We will be less than 50% of the population. This terrifies most white people in this country. And my question is why? I truly don't understand why this is a problem. I don't understand why white people are willing to put humanity aside in order to strive to maintain the majority. So honestly, if you feel this way, that yes, white people must be the majority of the United States, tell me why. Enlighten me. I really don't understand.
In 1980, the white population in California was 76 to 78%. Today, it's roughly 33%. That's within one generation. 45 years is not a long time. Roughly 40 to 45% of the children in California today are born to immigrant parents. I don't know about you, but I'm 100% convinced that the goal is to replace us and our culture. If you do care and you want to get involved in your community, go ahead and call your local representatives and tell them the things that you disagree with. There is absolutely no reason why our agricultural workers should not be American. The thing about living in 2025 is they can no longer use the excuse of, oh, we just really need people to do this work. No, you fucking don't. We have technology. This is completely unacceptable, and we can no longer allow this.
So that's actually a really interesting question, and I have a couple of potential answers. First off, I think it's important to note that overpopulation as an issue is a myth that is rooted in deeply racist sentiments. But in regards to what you're specifically asking about, I have a few theories. First, I think it's important to note the existence of the Great Replacement Theory in far-right circles. Essentially, it's a theory held by some that the mass migration of people of color from the global south will lead to the destruction of the white race. It's deeply racist, deeply anti-Semitic, and I cannot emphasize this enough, extremely fucking stupid. But for most white Americans, I have a different theory that stems from a conversation I had with a friend of mine a year ago. And that theory is essentially that most white Americans subconsciously understand that our country does not treat minority populations very well. And as such, they're essentially scared of becoming a minority population demographically because they associate that with mistreatment at the hands of the government. Personally, I think that's a really good theory. But it's important to note that for a lot of white Americans, it's probably also just blatant racism. So yeah, those are my theories. Anyway, have a good day.
Family, did you know that white people in America will become the minority population in the next 20 to 30 years? Family, this is making most of these people really stressful. They are wondering how they will survive in America being the minority, because they know how they've always treated the minority in America. They are afraid that people of color, would be able to take up power. They are afraid that people of color would revenge the atrocities they faced. They are afraid that revenge is coming soon. And family, right now, we are seeing how much the Democrats are really trying, to push certain agendas in America. We are seeing how they're clinging in leadership. We are seeing what Donald Trump is doing right now in America. They know that there is a time that is coming where white people would become the minority. They're used to the majority, they're used to power, but that is coming to an end. Family, it's not about numbers. It's about them being afraid of losing control. This has been the motivation for hateful policies for people of color in America. Whatever people of color have been facing, is being pushed by the hate they have for people of color. They know that soon they will not be the majority, and that is stressing them so much. So family, I want you to watch this video all the way to the end for you to be able to debunk this very fact. Fam, in a special way, I'd like to thank my subscribers who are supporting this channel by buying me a coffee. I do not take your support for granted. Let's watch the video, then we'll be right back.
Deep down, white supremacists like the Klan and you are fully aware that whiteness in the United States is not something that needs protecting from people of the global majority, much less black people. You are in danger of becoming the minority because you are reaping what you have sown on stolen land with stolen labor, and that you feel comfortable spreading this garbage is what shows that you already know that we who live in the United States spend all the days of our lives living in the infinite grace of black Americans. Because if black Americans possessed one fraction of the cold-bloodedness and the cruelty and the lack of empathy that would motivate them to commit one fraction of the atrocities that people like you have committed, then chattel slavery and Jim Crow could have never been maintained, because they would have shed as much blood to end it as people like you shed starting it. And the fact that didn't happen is not because they are weak. It is not because they are incapable. It is because they are strong and they repeatedly survive with their humanity and their morality intact, and knowing a depth that a person like you will never be able to conceive of. And you resent it, and that's what you are afraid of. So that's why you engage in race to innocence culture to paint yourself as pure and innocent and in need of protection. But we see through you, and we do not pity your victimhood and your fragility, nor do we fear the seething rage that you try to hide, always bubbling under the surface. We are just disgusted at your lack of ability to do anything other than project your own racism and lack of humanity.
You need to know that this idea of 4 or 5 different races has only been around for about 500 years.
Right.
It started with the Spanish Inquisition. Previous to that, people were just people of different colors. They weren't people of different races. And then along came Torquemada and the Spanish Inquisition, and they were killing Jews. They found out after they'd killed several thousand that many of the people they killed were Christians. So then they decided they'd have to find another way to decide who to kill, and they set upon skin color. It is that recent, and it is that ignorant, and it is that fragile. If you realize what's going to happen in this country in the next 30 years, within 30 years, white people will have become a numerical minority in the United States of America.
The white population has taken a massive decline.
Before I say the ignorant shit that I'm about to say, that I probably shouldn't say, but I'm gonna say it anyway. One, I need you to turn off your cognitive dissonance and implicit bias and just go with me. Barring outside factors that clear as day could affect fertility, white people don't procreate with each other well. John and Sarah might fall in love and get engaged and get married, but they might never have a child together. But what'll end up happening is that Sarah will go up the street to a dark-skinned Deontay house, blink 3 times, all of a sudden she's pregnant with a kid that's about my color. And what John will do is he'll go all the way across town and get Maria and Ling Ling pregnant, and turn around and have a kid that's kind of tan, or have a kid with Asian features. Either way, the children from any of these 3 different unions are not 100% white, nor are they 100% anything else. They are mixed. I have reason to believe that's like that because black people are almost 20% of this country's population, and we breed a lot. And then you have all these Hispanic people who are coming up right behind us, and they breed more than we do, on top of all the other immigrants from other parts of the world coming right here, and have been coming here in mass, since the mid-2000s? It's seeming like sort of ethno and cultural shift in the country that no one's really talking about. But again, I don't know, and I could be tripping.
So y'all remember that census article that came out like in late 2019, just before 2020 it started, saying that by 2050 the population of the United States, about like half of it was going to be mixed race, and essentially that's why all these Republicans are going on a whole rampage of trying to keep, the whiteness alive. Well, essentially Gen Z will be the last generation with majority, white in the US. So even if they tried for the future, they're like, damn, that's it. According to a new study, Gen Z Americans will give way to a post 2012 majority minority generation Alpha. So Gen Alpha is essentially going to be, the next ones that are going to be representing the new population of America. And honestly, it's not surprising. We have full discussions on here all the time about people popping up with biracial babies, hoping they would look like the daddy, but they don't. Also, the quote tweet that I found this is just, wow. Generation Alpha is the best name for the first majority BIPOC generation in the United States. We love to see it. And I know the Republicans are fuming, so I don't know if I should be laughing at that or I should be very, very scared because they are just running a rampage.
By 2040, white Americans will become a majority minority, meaning that they'll still be the largest racial group, but no longer over 50% of the population. Now, here's the cold, unfiltered truth. What the media waters down. If you're under 10 already, a white's already a minority. In many cities, suburbs, and entire states, the shift has already happened. California, Texas, Nevada, done. It's not just about numbers, it's about power. Population changes are shifting. Political, economic, and cultural dominance. The fear among some whites isn't just or numbers. It's about losing institutional control that they've had for centuries. This is where the Great Replacement Theory conspiracy talk comes in. Panic over losing the top dog status. Of course, a systemic grip won't vanish overnight. Even as demographic shift, white Americans still hold overwhelming wealth, land, corporate, and political power. A majority minority doesn't mean majority influence ends, but it terrifies those who've never shared power. The backlash will get worse. The rise of Trumpism, voter suppression, book banks, or book bans, attacks on critical race theory, these are all symptoms of the panic. Expect more rage politics, more dog whistles, or more attempts to preserve dominance through laws, not numbers. The real game is systemic redesign. The United States is racing towards a plural society, multiracial, multi-ethnic, and post-Eurocentric. But unless the systems of ownership, policing, education, and media are overhauled, raw numbers do not mean liberation. Whites are becoming a majority minority by 2040 isn't just a census trivia. It's triggering a nerve behind America's political division right now. White nationalists rage and right-wing backlash. This isn't just demographic change. It's a seismic shift in the psychology of power. And America is reacting like a lion watching its jungle burn.
Hey, I want to show you something. I've been saying for a while that I think Gen Z is going to be the future of this country that pushes us forward and sparks change. But let's take a look at Gen Alpha. If you take a look, you'll see that the white population is about to dip below 50% for the first time in history. Gen Z will be the last generation with the majority of a white population. Gen Alpha is majority minority, and come 2045, white people will fall below half of the population in the United States. I'll just leave this here, but I just want to say that I am so glad that I will get to see this change in my lifetime.
People seem to be confused on what minority means. Minority means less than 50%. For example, by 2045 in the United States, white people will be the minority because there will be more people of color than white people. Then they'll be the minority. That's what minority means.
Family, the biggest fear of the white supremacist has always been black people, or rather people of color, taking up positions that they have always had since the very start, the very foundation of America. Family, for the longest time, white people have enjoyed white privilege. They have enjoyed, being, the majority, in America. That has come with power. That has come with trying to oppress, the minorities in America. We've seen what black people have gone through in the US. Talk about slavery, Jim Crow, redlining, mass incarceration, just but to mention a few. Till today, black people are still facing systemic injustices. Family, they have enjoyed the majority slot for the longest time. They have enjoyed their white privilege. Family right now noticing that in the next 20 to 30 years, there would be the minority is just stressing them so much. And most of them are worried because they think that people of color would take that as a chance for them, to revenge for the atrocities that they've been facing over the years. Family, have you heard of the Great Replacement Theory? White people having children with people of color and more people of color coming to the US, will make white folks become the minority. Family, you all understand that if a white person, makes a baby with a person of color, the baby becomes a person of color. Rarely they become white. So family, that set of intermarriage is also causing the white populations to decline each and every day. Right now, the other worry they have is black people, coming in as immigrants. We are seeing right now they are pushing, for the deportation of immigrants outside of America. The real intention is to ensure that white people still maintain their status as the majority in America. Family, soon what will happen is that white people will become the majority minority. Family, the majority are people who surpass the 50% mark. So funny enough, white people would be those group of people soon. This is very soon, family. There will be the group of people who are majority, but on the minority side. Imagine them being at least 40%. That would mean that they are the majority, minority. And that is what is happening in America soon. That is what will happen because we all know how powerful the people of color's genes are. We know the genes of black people when they intermarry with white people. Most of the white people, their genes are recessive, while those of black folks are dominant. That explains, what will be happening in a few years. Family, when you look at many white populations, many white families, they tend not to give birth compared to white people who are married to black folks. The numbers are slowly decreasing each and every day. The numbers are slowly decreasing while those of people of color rising. That's why people are trying to approximate and say that in the next 20 to 30 years, black folks would be the major, majority of the US. Let me say people of color. So they are afraid that if black people become the majority, the people of color become the majority, they will revenge and treat them how they've been treating, black people. We are talking about subjugation, of people, enslavement, assault, and violence. We all know what white people have done to black communities in America. So they are afraid that if people of color are able to get power, then revenge would come to them, that they shall be enslaved too, in different ways, the modern way of enslavement. They are afraid that they too shall be assaulted. They are afraid that they too shall face violence from people of color, because that is what they perpetuated in their communities in America. Family, this is the biggest stressor for the white supremacist. A recent example that can make a lot of sense to you. White folks are afraid of losing their power. We saw it, we saw a recent demonstration last year when they decided in November of 2024 that they shall re-elect Donald Trump as the president of the United States of America. They did that because they were angry for power. They wanted the white status to be maintained because they are also seeing that the populations are decreasing each and every day. Right now, we are seeing people crying left, right, and center, especially white folks, regretting voting Donald Trump. Most of them voted for Donald Trump because he's a white man, nothing else. They are afraid of losing their status quo. They are used to power. They are used to leadership. They were imagining not having a white leader again in the White House after Barack Obama was the president of the United States of America. They do not want to see that again. And family, these are the biggest fears of a white supremacist: power, and becoming a minority in an America where they've enjoyed the fruits of being the majority. So family, white folks are seeing that change coming. That's why they are clinging to power. They are pushing their people to still maintain the power that they've always had. They are scared of the tables turning. They are scared of them being punished by people of color. They are afraid of being the minority because they haven't been treating the minority well since the very foundation of America. We've seen how people have been treated. Family, right now, their only goal is to ensure that they retain the power. But sooner or later, that would be overwhelming for them. They won't be able to maintain this status because of a lot of factors that you all know and understand about. Family, like the video so that it can be recommended to other YouTube users, and I'd be very, very grateful. Kindly consider commenting in this video in the comment box down below. Let me know what you think about this projection, of between 20 to 30 years. People of color would be the majority, while white folks would be, the minority. Let me know if that is something you agree with. Family, lastly, I'd highly appreciate, if you all do consider subscribing to the channel. We are currently on the road to 50,000 subscribers, and guys, I'd highly appreciate if you all would share this video widely and ensure that this message reaches your friends and family. The goal of this channel has always been to talk about black stories, black history, and tell black stories the black way, because if we give white supremacists an opportunity to tell our stories, we all know what they do. They whitewash our stories. So family, thank you so much, and see you all in our next episode. Goodbye for now.